Okay, so hi and welcome to Flutter 101. Okay, I named this Flutter 101 because it will be very basic about Flutter and we will not go in depth in any of the topic over here, but then there will be some extra work you have to do in order to go deep into it. Depends on let's say what category you want to go in. Okay, so this is just introduction. Okay.
Yes.
So firstly, let's break the ice. Can you introduce yourself first, or you want me to do first?
Yes, I will do first.
Okay.
My name is Nguyen Hương Thao.
Okay.
I'm Vietnamese, and now I'm living in Japan for about 6 years. Yes. My job is a translator from Japanese to Vietnamese in an IT company.
Cool.
And so I want to learn some coding language to improve myself. And so I chose Flutter because it's new and it seems simple.
Yeah, promise you it's simple. It's quite easy for starter as well.
Yes, but I don't know anything about coding before. I just look at the detailed design and document. Everything is in document. I didn't do anything with source code. So this is the first time I learning to coding anything.
Okay. Yeah. So since you don't have any development background, if there's any part that you do not understand or if I go too fast, you can stop me and ask me immediately, okay?
Yes, okay.
Okay, so let me introduce myself. I'm Suesi. I'm Suesi Tran. I'm also a Vietnamese, and currently I'm living in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. I've been working in software development 15 years, coming to 16 years now, and most of the time I work in mobile development. So I picked up Flutter just 5 years ago when it was still in beta. So right now I'm working as engineering associate manager in Accenture, but my day-to-day work is more like Flutter developer and also just mainly Flutter developer. So I can guide you through the basic of Flutter, hopefully can get you start coding, start working on it, and create your own first app as you wish, and make some fun editing by the end of the course. Sound fun? Okay, great. So first, let's spend around 2 minutes to watch the video from Flutter team. This is the very first video for Flutter. Welcome to Flutter from the Flutter team, and it's made long time ago, but right now it's still relevant. Okay?
Yes.
Welcome to the Flutter channel here on YouTube.
Can you hear the sound?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Flutter is a portable UI toolkit built by Google and the open source community. And we've got tons of great videos to show you how to use it. Widget of the Week. It's a weekly series of short animated videos, each showing the important features of one particular widget.
Welcome back to the Flutter Boring Show, and we'll be talking about page transitions. It's gonna be a little bit more boring than usual.
That's what our Flutter in Focus video series is built for. Tutorials with real code that cover the techniques every Flutter dev needs to know from top to bottom.
Our goal for this year's event is to highlight the creative expressivity of Flutter.
And welcome to the Ask Flutter Q&A here at Flutter Interact.
We can use the liberties of Flutter to make things a little bit more fun, even in a banking app.
Flutter allowed me to create PassMe without having to sacrifice on either the app and its functionality or my time with my family.
Today we are working on Dashcast.
Did somebody say Dashcast?
So check us out and hit the subscribe button to be notified when new stuff gets released. We have a lot to show you.
Okay, so that is introduction to Flutter, and actually if you watch the video, you notice that Flutter also have their own channel on YouTube, and a lot of widget that I later on I introduced briefly some of the most basic widget, but for advanced level, you should watch on their widget of the week series. It's not only from Flutter team, but also from other Flutter developer and also Flutter developer expert. So they really introduce a lot of widget over there, and it will be useful for you. Okay.
Yes.
Welcome to the
Okay, so we talk about the development platform. This is the computer operating system that you can start working development on. And we have two most famous development platform. One is Windows and one is iOS. Basically, Flutter development can work on any platform, any OS, but there's a catch because Flutter can write the code for Android, iOS, Chrome, web, desktop, and more. And because the thing is that iOS app can only be generated using Mac OS. So on any platform, you can write the code, but in order to deploy on iOS devices like iPhone or Mac OS for the desktop version, you will need a MacBook. So Microsoft Windows, yes, you can use it, but for iOS deployment, you may need some other CI/CD extra. And that CI/CD part is not covered in this topic, but if you want, you can ping me anytime. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. So next is Mac OS. So you can see on the platform, supported platform that is included here. It includes all the platform that can be generated on the platform that is supported, Flutter supported, and include the iOS as well. Only Mac OS has this because it's Apple. Other OS, we have Chrome OS, Ubuntu, Debian is also a Linux OS. I don't see many people use them commercially, but Ubuntu and Chrome OS, I've seen some developers use them and they really love it. And you can use any of them for development, for Flutter development. Okay, so the IDEs for Flutter, we have two IDEs for Flutter. Number one is Android Studio. If you come from Android background, Android development background, you're very familiar with this Android Studio because we use it since Android. After Eclipse, we moved to Android Studio, and I've been using Android Studio until now. And I'm very, very familiar with this because I come from Android background. The next IDE is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is widely used and the most favorite IDEs among Flutter developers, especially those new Flutter developers, because they say it supported Flutter very well. And then hot reload, and hot restart, they are both supported. And if you watch Google I/O, Flutter I/O, I can't remember the event name. It's last year. The Flutter team showed the Flutter Octopus. That one source code is run on multiple devices at the same time. You can do that using the Flutter command line, but Visual Studio Code currently support that as well. So it's a very cool features that Android Studio currently do not have yet. So just now I mentioned the hot reload and hot restart. Okay, so if you are a developer and you're familiar with building and recompiling your app and deploy your app on the device, you will know that that process takes time. It takes quite a long time, even though your change is just one text or one image. But with Flutter, Flutter has the hot reload features. So this videos is a 2-minute videos, and it will explain how hot reload what hot reload is in Flutter. Okay.
One of Flutter's awesomely powerful features is hot reload, but sometimes it just sort of works, even though your IDE is properly connected to the device. What the Flutter? Hot reload works by updating the source code in the running Dart virtual machine. Then, starting with the widget at the root of the tree, every widget's build method is rerun until the entire tree is rebuilt and a new frame is rendered. Change the title of your app bar? Great. Hot reload will work for you. Swapped out your widget's column for a row? Also great. But did you change what widget is at the root of your tree? That one that you're passing into Run App? Well, remember how we said that the reload starts with the widget currently at the root. If you change it, Flutter still tries to run the build method for the one that used to be the root. It doesn't rerun main or run app, and so for that, you'll have to restart. If any of your changes are outside of the build method, it's a safe bet that full restart will be required. Let's look at a couple of examples. Since init state or dispose aren't called by build, changes in those methods won't be picked up by hot reload, and a restart is needed instead. Did you add or change some static fields? Hot reload tries to maintain state, which means these static variables aren't updated, and you'll also need to restart. Or say you've just converted a stateless widget into a stateful one and made no other changes. The widget might be named the same, and build might do the same thing, but it's now a different type, stateful instead of stateless, and the build method is somewhere else in the state object. So again, you'll need to restart. With all of those changes outside of build methods, hot reload isn't able to pick them up, and restart is your friend. But made a change within the build method of an existing widget, sit back, relax, and watch as hot reload picks it up. For more on hot reload and how to get under the hood, head on over to flutter.dev.
Okay, so in this video, he mentioned 3 things, actually 4 things. Number 1 is hot reload. Number 2 is hot restart. Number 3 is stateless widget. And number 4 is stateful widget. Okay, so when you start with Flutter widget, you will know that there is stateful widget and stateless widget. They are both the basic widgets for all the widgets that we are going to use. Okay, the name of the stateless widgets, it means that the widget does not have any state, and it's just a kind of static widget UI component on the screen. The stateful widget, in the other hand, can have its own state, and the build method of the stateful widget can be called any time that the state updated. Okay, so the hot reload features will call only the build method inside the widget. So the widget, in the stateless widget and stateful widget, we have the build method where all the UI is created. So when you make changes within the build method, only within the build method, the hot reload is the very good choice because it saves time for you and it will update the screen immediately. Okay, but if you, let's say if you change any param outside of the build method, so over here I have a source code example over here. So this my app is a stateless widget. Okay, because this is a class that extends a stateless widget, that is why it is a stateless widget. And it has the build method. Anything changed within this build method will be called and will be updated using the hot reload feature. Okay, but outside here, let's say if we define another param, we define another param outside of the build method, and we try to use that param to update it inside the build method. For this, the hot reload will not work because the change starts from outside of the build method. Do you know what is a method in development?
Yes.
Okay, good. So with this type of change, it will not work. Okay, so even though the change later on you use that change inside the build method, it does not work because the param is defined outside of the method. For this to work, you will need to define the param inside the build method. Then the hot reload will work. Okay, so next we will continue with Flutter comment. Flutter command lines. So before we have the IDEs, actually we have IDEs. From what I remember, is like the start of Flutter itself, but Flutter still provide a set of Flutter command lines. So if you do not have any IDEs and you still want to code with Flutter, you will need to be very familiar with these Flutter command lines in order to do that. I don't think anyone actually do that. Anyway, if you plan to be Flutter DevOps engineers, for example, you will need to know these Flutter command lines very, very, very well, because these Flutter command lines are used for CI/CD pipeline, for CLI, on those settings. So it will be good to know. And over here, this is a list of all the Flutter command lines that is provided by Flutter. You can have the detailed screen here. You don't need to copy the screen right now because I will share this slideshow this slide by the end of our lesson. Okay. So among all these comments over here, what you will need to know is analyze. Analyze will analyze your source code, your DAT source code, because Flutter, the language that is used to write Flutter app is DAT. So Flutter Analyze will analyze the DAT source code. So it is actually a wrapper of the DAT Analyze. So whether you use the Flutter Analyze or DAT Analyze is basically the same. Basically, that why I say basically, because from a developer point of view, I think they are the same. But there may be changes that I'm not aware of. Okay, this is not my cup of tea, so pardon me for this. The next one you need to know is the build command. As it say, it will build your source code, and if it's a success, you will get the app. So the build method will have some other parameters. For example, you want to build for iOS, for Android, or for macOS, or for Linux environment, or for web. You can use that, okay, for the build method. Flutter channel. This one for developers who like to explore features before it's stable. They will be very familiar with this, because with Flutter channel, Flutter has how many channels? The master channel, the beta, the stable. I remember that 3 channels: master, beta, and stable. So most of the developer will work on the stable channel. The stable channel is where each of the Flutter release new version, it will go on the stable. The beta is where the Flutter is being worked on and is partially tested. There may be some issues with it, and it's given out to developer to try out and give feedback. Okay, the master channel is where the work is being done in Flutter team. And it's totally raw, totally untested. And if you work on that and your project work fine, that will be a very big question mark, because when you move to the stable channel, it may not work. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This Flutter create command is for you to create the new Flutter project. So for every Flutter developer, this is the first, no, not the first. Maybe it's the first command you will use just to create the new project before you can run the project, debug it, and then once it's fully workable, you build it. So the run command is down here, is to run the Flutter program. And the default DAT file for the run command is the lib/main.dat. If you use IDE, you don't need to worry about this, because Android Studio and also VS Code, they have the run button, which will actually execute this command. Okay, we have other command here as well: install, test, and upgrade and downgrade as well. Okay, so for the upgrade and downgrade, you know that Flutter has multiple versions, right? So each of the development stage, you will use Flutter version. And then when Flutter release new version into the stable channel, let's say you are on a stable channel and you want to upgrade your local Flutter to be the higher version, latest version, you use Flutter Upgrade. It's just the full command is just Flutter Upgrade, and then you will get the copy of the latest version of Flutter in your local machine. But in case that you want to downgrade it to the older version, you can use the Flutter downgrade. But with Flutter downgrade, you will need to specify the version number. Okay. And lastly, Flutter Test. For development, we always need to test. So in Flutter, we have widget test and unit test. Both of them are in the test folder, and the Flutter test will run the test in that directory. So by default, the directory name is test. But if you want to change the name of the directory, it's not test anymore, then you will have to specify the directory name or the direct path to your test.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions so far?
Where we can use these commands in the we will use in the develop environment.
No.
No.
Okay, as I say, these command lines are useful if you do not wish to use IDE. If you are a developer and you have IDE, you don't need to care of this. If you have very high interest in being Flutter DevOps engineer, you know what is DevOps, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Then you will need all these because all these it can run with Fastlane. It can also run with CodeMagic, and also what else? Circus CI, I think. Yeah. So all these command is used for CI/CD purpose. Okay. We are still not in the main topic yet, okay? So in every that package, there's a pubspec.yaml file. This pubspec.yaml file is a package dependency declaration. Okay. So over here, I have the example for the pubspec.yaml. We will have the name of the package. We have the description for this package. So when you run the Flutter create command and create the new Flutter project, this pubspec.yaml and all the information on the package over here are automatically generated. And you can find the pubspec.yaml right under your project folder. Okay, it's right under here. This publish tool is if you wish to if you create the package that you want to publish it to the pub.dev, then you will write it here. Otherwise you just ignore this line and leave it as it is. Okay. The version, this version will contain of the version name and version code. Version code also known as the build number, and is separated by the plus comment, the plus symbol. Okay, so before the plus, this 3 digit over here is the version name, and the digit behind after the plus is the version code. Again, this version is for CI/CD and versioning control. Okay, mostly if you work in the project, only the build number, the version code is updated, but the version name will only be updated when you make a production release, once per production release. And if you really work in a well-structured team, normally you only update this when you receive requests for production release. Okay. This environment over here, the SDK, you see a bunch of number over here. This is the that environment version. Okay. Flutter 2.0 used that 2.17 and above, and still below 3.0. So this slide is auto-generated. If you don't have any problem with that environment, please do not change this. Okay, with that 2.17 and above, you have now safety. Now safety is a feature of that language to protect the app from null pointer exception. So with 2.17 and above, you have that. It's cool things, very cool stuff. Okay, the important part is the dependencies. These dependencies is the main package dependencies, and all these dependencies will be included in your app when it's built. Remember the Flutter build command, Flutter build and Flutter run. It will be included on this. So currently I have two examples here. On the Flutter app, on the Flutter project, we depend on Flutter, and the SDK is Flutter. Okay. Apart from the Flutter package, I also add the dependency on the Cupertino icon package and also Flutter SVG. If you need more package, you can add more of them here. Okay, so for example, just now he mentioned that we can find package on pub.dev. One example, let's try to find package. Okay. Okay, device info plus. So if you go to pub.dev and you choose any of the package, you will see this icon over here. It's very easy info. You just click on it, and the format for the package inclusion is copied to your clipboard, and you can just go here and paste it on. That's it. And you click this pub-get over here. Then the new package is included and it's ready for you to use anytime. Any changes you make into the pubspec.yaml file, you will need to run the pub-get. Okay. And in case that the pub-get sometimes it still do not work, you just run the pub upgrade. But most of the time, pub-get is enough. Okay. The next part is dev dependencies. These are the dependencies that is included during development. Okay, so normally during the development, as I say, the test is very important. Okay, test coverage for a project should be at least 70% and above. So we always include the Flutter test here. And when you run the Flutter create command, the Flutter test is always included. Please do not remove it. Okay. Other dev dependencies, it really depends on what else you need during the development. If you think that you only need them during the development, add them here. If you think that you will need it for the production, then you add them above. Okay. Okay, below here, this session is specified for Flutter project only. Flutter project only, okay? So we will have this use material design. There's a slide later to talk about material designs, and the video is around, I think, 13 minutes to 15 minutes. And most of the time, because Flutter belongs to Google, and Google also owns the material design. So most of the time all the time when you use Flutter create, this value is true. Okay. And material design is the look and feel of how the Android is like. So with material design, if you use material design, your app is very Android-ish. And if you use Cupertino design, your app is very iOS-ish. Okay. Apart from the material design, we also need other assets like images, icon, and font, new font. So we can add all the assets over here. This is where you declare all your assets, and below you can also declare your fonts if you need them. Okay. So the assets, you can see this format is the relative path to your assets. Each of the assets you will need to add one line. Okay, so and the relative path is from the root of the project. So example, here's the root of the project and the assets folder is right here, right underneath the root of the project. And there are three icons, three SVG icon in here. That is why there are three lines of definition in here in the pubspec.yaml. Okay. Let's say if you have 20 of them, what do you do? If you have 20 icons, what do you do?
I don't know.
You have to define them all. You have to add 20 lines. I think there is a plugin for that, but I haven't tried it yet. I think there is. It will really help us reduce the work over here. But normally we add around 1 or 2 icons at a time, so people do not feel that is so much needed. But sometimes we can never tell how many icons we will have to replace. So a plugin will be nice. Okay, the example from the font is also similar to the assets. Okay, so let's say inside the assets you create a new folder for icons and then another folder for font. Then you will need to copy the exact path of that related path from the root down. But in this example over here, the assets say only font, so it means that you will need to create a new directory. Where's directory? Name is font, and then inside this directory, you will need this file, exact same name. Okay. There's one more note for the YAML file format, not format, syntax. Is that this line need to be aligned. Yeah, because right now is wrong syntax. Okay, this is wrong syntax. When you run pub-get, I'll get error over here. Right. With this, I will have to remove the extra space. Okay, let's just try that much. Hopefully there's no more. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, finally, so this style over here, because it is the sub-item of the font, and the access also sub-item of the font, so it will need to be in this format with two space compared to the font, and then with the dash, space, styles, and then the style name. Okay. There's one issue that the bucket actually does not know is that the access folder, even though this file does not actually exist in that folder is in that location. Right now, Pubget does not know it yet until you run and you use this font. Then it will tell you that this file actually does not exist. Okay. Okay. So in here are the supported field, and all this information is in this URL over here. You can have a look at them, and there are actually more information to what I explained to you. But those I explained to you are those that developer will need to touch them, not on the daily basis, but during their course of their job, they will need it. Okay. Okay, so now let's talk about widget, the main topic of today's. So when we start with widget, we will need to start at some functional high-level widget that does not actually create a UI that you can see, but it created the backbone for your application. For example, we will have the application widget. Application widget, it can be divided into two types. One is material design application, material widget, and one is Cupertino app widget. Two of them, the material design is for material design. It creates the UI for that look more of Android native UI. That if you use that and you deploy on the iOS device, the iOS may feel some part of your app is not familiar to them in a way. But if you use Cupertino design on iOS, then the iOS will feel very familiar with them. They feel smooth, feel native. But if the same Cupertino design you use on Android, the Android user will be confused. Okay, so we have three application widget. One is the widget app, which is the generic application widget, which is it's very generic and it does not have specific material design theming or Cupertino design theming. Okay, material app is the extension of widget app, but it provides the material design theming. Cupertino app is also an extension of widget app, and it provides Cupertino design theming. Okay, so over here, let's watch this guy talking about the material design in Flutter. This video is 30 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Hey everybody, I'm Andrew from the Flutter team, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how using Flutter's material design widgets can help you quickly break down a design and turn it into real code that runs on both iOS and Android. Google recently released a bunch of new stuff for the material design system to help app developers build beautiful, usable experiences fast. With that came a ton of open source code that developers can use to implement those experiences. There are native libraries for iOS and Android, web components, and for Flutter, a whole bunch of widgets. Expanding panels, buttons, implicit animations, all kinds of stuff that you can use to quickly build your own native apps. How does that affect you? Well, imagine you're an engineer and your company's lead designer comes to you and says, hey, you know how we were looking for a project to get started with Flutter? Turns out the animal shelter down the road could use an app, so I mocked up a kitten adoption catalog. How quickly can you get these two designs turned into something we can actually see on Android and iOS? No problem. The first place to head is Flutter's Material Components Gallery. Here, you can find the widgets that'll be the building blocks of your interface. There's Scaffold, for instance, which provides a visual framework for your app with room for drawers and floating action buttons and menus. There are also dialogues, alerts, input elements for capturing data, and a lot more. With those widgets in your tool belt, you can begin thinking of the design in terms of how it's actually going to be constructed. The first screen becomes a scaffold with a list view, and the second becomes a simple dialogue with a networked image, some text widgets, and a couple buttons. A lot of times, this is when you, the engineer, would have to go write up a design doc and show what your plan is and then haggle over the details with the designer. But Flutter's built to make app coding quick, and in less time than it would probably take you to produce that doc, you can just knock out the code and have something real for people to look at. So let's do it. Let's get into an editor and start putting components together. Okay, here we are in a very basic Flutter app, about 20 lines of Dart code. First step to mocking up is mock data. So I'm going to use the magic of cut and paste to add a class to hold my kitten data. There's nothing fancy here, just 4 properties: name, age, description, and a URL for a kitten pic. And now for some data. Because iOS simulators and Android emulators use different addresses to represent the actual machine they're running on, I'm going to add a global string for it. And then I'll create a list of kitten objects with image URLs that work on either platform. There we go. 4 cats, easy peasy. For the images themselves, I've got them in a folder, and I'm just going to run Python's simple HTTP server. So for all my app nodes, these images could be coming from any server on the net. Okay, with the data in place, it's time to start building out the UI. Here's my home page, which is just an empty container right now. And I'm going to replace it with a scaffold, which provides some visual structure for everything else. And it has an app bar property I can use to put a title bar in my app. Available cats. Let's do kittens. All right, so when I save this and do a hot reload, I get this. It's a start, and it's running on both an iOS simulator and Android. If you haven't seen hot reload in action, Flutter can quickly deploy code changes to your app while it's still running. So I'm going to be making small incremental changes and then flipping back to these instances of the app a lot over the next few minutes. All right, let's add a body to the scaffold. This is where the list view comes in. I'll use the named builder constructor, which takes 3 parameters. First is item count, which is just the length of my list. There we go. Then comes item extent, the height of each item. And I'll just go with 60. And last is the builder. This is the method that's responsible for building the widgets that'll display each item. And I'm just going to make up a name and give it a function here. I'll define that method up here. It returns a widget and takes a build context. And that build context just represents a spot in the hierarchy where these widgets will be placed. And it takes the index of the item as well. And let's start with just a text widget for the kitten's name. There we go. And hot reload. All right, we got some names, but they're pretty small.
Okay, over here. Okay, the change is inside the build and also outside the build method. Do you know why hot reload work at this time?
No.
That is because the change start inside the build method.
Inside the build.
Yeah, it start inside. So the change actually start in here. So he add the new list view in, and the method that he add in is the list item builder. It's in. So the call for the list item builder is inside the build method. And even though he defined that method outside of the build method, because the initial point is inside the build method, that is why hot reload still work. Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
I can use a text style to fix that though. One of the material components for Flutter is theme. Every app starts with a default theme, and I'll be customizing it later. This code gets a reference to the theme object for the correct context and then styles the text widget to match the headline font. This something of context pattern, by the way, pops up a lot in Flutter. This is how you get the Navigator to push routes, for example, and you can even get a reference to the containing scaffold that way. All right, hot reload. And we got big names. They're still locked on the left edge though, so I'll wrap the text widgets in a container and set some padding here. I think 16 should do it. There we go, container. And I'll set the padding property with a constant of 16. Once I've got that done, I just need to add an alignment here. There we go. And I'll use center left. That gives me vertical centering and left alignment. All right, another hot reload. And there we go. One last thing to do. Our app is blue, but the design was purple. So let me scroll up. Material app, which is the widget that represents my entire app, has an optional theme parameter in its constructor. I can give it some theme data that'll be merged into that default theme. So I'll set the primary swatch to purple. There we go. And one more hot reload. And I've got purple. My first design is implemented. All right, so that's one screen down. Now let's get the rest of the design working. I'm going to launch a simple dialog with some text, image, and button widgets that display details for an individual kitten. That's probably not a sentence you hear every day. Let's get to it. First order of business, I need to launch the dialog in response to a tab, so I need a gesture detector. There we go. I can use its onTap property to get myself wired up. So no parameters needed. I'm just going to call showDialog, which is a top-level Flutter method that takes a context and a builder function that's responsible for creating the widgets that compose the dialog. Hey, everybody.
Okay, let me explain this syntax. This syntax is syntax in that language. Is for inline method. Okay, it is a method declaration and it's actually inline. So open bracket here, it means that this method does not take any parameters at all. Sometimes you will see that inside this bracket that there are some parameters. Sometimes it can be build context, index, or anything. They will be defined inside these parameters, inside this bracelets. Okay. Sometimes if your method, let's say, is just one line method, then using this inline method declaration is actually easier. But if you are not familiar with it, you can just declare your own method the normal way.
Parameters needed. I'm just going to call show dialog, which is a top-level Flutter method that takes a context and a builder function that's responsible for creating the widgets that compose the dialog.
There. So this builder method is also the inline method, and it takes a build context as a param.
Just like with the list view.builder, I'm going to give it a name, dialog builder. And I'm going to define that function up here. It returns a widget, and it accepts a build context and a kitten. I'm just going to have it return a container to start so we can see what this dialog actually looks like. Here we go. I'll give it a width and a height, say 80 of each. It's just going to be a big blank box. Okay, hot reload. And let me tap on mittens here on both sides. And I got empty dialogues. Cool. All right, so let's replace the container with something real. I'll start with a kitten image. I can use the image class, here we go, which has a named constructor for network loaded images. And I'm just going to give it the URL, which comes straight out of that mock object. And I'll give it a fit of fill. There we go. So it's a full bleed display. Format that up and hot reload. Hey, Mittens the Majestic. All right. And let me try one of the other cats. Steve here, he's pretty cool. Excellent. Okay, so that image is full bleed, but my text widgets and buttons should have some padding around them. So I'll use a padding widget. There we go. And another 16. And inside, I'm going to use a column widget, which can display the instances of text vertically. There we go. Format that up and hot reload. And so there's my padded empty column at the bottom. And speaking of padding, that space above the image is still there, and I need to take it out. That's not part of the design. Fortunately, I can set the content padding on the dialog itself to 0. There's actually a constant for it. So edge insets.0. And there we go. Okay, time for some text widgets. There's the name, the age, and description. There's one. Get another one for age in here, and then description. Now, age is an integer, so I'll use Dart's string interpolation to convert that to a nice string. Hot reload, and there's my text. But it is unstyled and unaligned, so we got some more work to do. Alignment is easy. Rows and columns have an alignment for their cross-axis, a property for that. The main axis for a column, of course, is vertical, so cross-axis alignment controls how things are set on the horizontal axis. I've got this set to stretch. So reload, and everything's there. Cool. So I need some sizes on these, and that means a theme object. I'm going to use it a few times in here, so I'm actually going to cache a local copy up at the top. There we go. Now I can come down and let's say display 1 for this one, which is a really big font size. Here we go. Scroll down. And hot reload. There's Steve. Okay. And I'm going to knock out the rest of these pretty quick. I'll use subhead for the age. That's a good one. And the copy with method allows me to modify the theme instance, sort of like I did with the purple color earlier. So I'm going to make that italic. And I'm also going to use a widget called sized box here to just block out some space between the age and the description. With that done, I can set the description to use the style for body text. Here we go. Body 1. Get that formatted up. All right, and hot reload. There we go. All right, now I just need some buttons. First, I'll use a wrap widget, which is like a row, but will wrap its children if they extend too far. There we go. Then I can use a flat button for the first choice, which is sort of like the cancel button. Let me get that in there. And I'll put I'm allergic, because why else would you not want a kitten in your life? And for the default action, I'll use a raised button. And that one's going to say adopt. And you'll know I'm just giving these empty methods for their on-press properties. That way they're enabled, but they're not going to actually do anything. Okay, cool. So I've got some buttons. They're not aligned right though, and the colors are off. Alignment's easy. I can fix that by putting the wrap widget in an align widget, and then setting its alignment property to center right. And I'm also going to use another sized box to get some space in between the buttons and the description text. And while I'm in here, let me actually use the Navigator to dismiss the dialog when that first button is clicked, the I'm allergic button. This is another one of those something of context methods like I mentioned before. There we go. All right, my buttons are in the right spot, and clicking dismisses the dialog properly. Let's get Scooter up here. All right, at this point, I just need to change the styling of my buttons and I'm pretty much done. So I'll come back up to the theme for my app, and I'll set the button text theme to primary, which will be white text. Here we go. And then I can set the button color itself to purple as well. All right, one last hot reload gets me a finished implementation. I've got all the elements in place and everything is styled just like it should be to match the design. All right, after having spent just a short time coding, you can now go back to that designer, hand them builds of the app for Android and iOS, and get feedback based on actual code running on device. That's one of the goals that Flutter is designed for, getting from idea to app as quickly as possible. That's it for today. But if you'd like to learn more about Flutter, we got links to guides, sample apps, and a bunch of other resources in the description for this video. So check those out and head to flutter.io to get started.
Okay, in this video, there are 3 parts that is already outdated. Number 1 is the flag button. It's already depreciated. So instead of the flag button, we use text button. Yeah, and the raise button is also depreciated. Instead of the raise button, we use elevated button now. Okay, text button, elevated button. Third one, Flutter.io is now changed to Flutter.dev. Okay, that 3. So that's it about material design. Do you have any question yet?
It's okay.
Okay, so next we will watch a video about the Cupertino package. It will cover some of the Cupertino design and also some example how to use the Cupertino package for the Cupertino design. Okay, after the next video, we will watch some more videos about the theme widget. Just now you saw he used the theme, right, in the material design. Cupertino package has Cupertino theme and material design has material theme. That will be confusing, so bear with it, okay?
Hey everybody, I'm Andrew from the Flutter team, here to tell you about Flutter's Cupertino package and how you can use it to build apps that iOS users feel right at home with. The Cupertino package is built and maintained by the Flutter team, and it ships with the SDK. So if you've got Flutter on your machine, you've got Cupertino. Crack it open and you'll see a bunch of stuff. There are several dozen widgets like Cupertino Action Sheet, Segmented Control, and Cupertino App. There are some definitions too, like Cupertino Colors, and some things that aren't used directly but still play an important role, like page transition animations. All these things combine to give you the ability to compose interfaces with Flutter that iOS users feel comfortable with, that look and act the way they expect. Disabled buttons are the proper color, pop-ups appear from the right direction with the right speed, and when the user instinctively swipes to dismiss one, away it goes. That's what the Cupertino package is built for. All right, let's hop into an editor and get some code going. We can start with the widget that serves as the root of all things Cupertino, Cupertino app. Alrighty, so here's my empty Flutter app. I'm going to add Cupertino app right here. And this provides me with theming, a navigator, text direction, all those other basic in every app kind of widgets. And I'll give it a home screen widget as the home route, which means I should probably make a home screen widget. So let me do that now. Let's start this off with a Cupertino page scaffold. This is going to be the first thing people see when the app starts, and let's just do a little hello world here so I can run it and make sure everything's working. So center, and then I'll put a text in here with hello world. Let's get that hot reload, and there it is. So we got a tiny, tiny hello world. Let's fix that by putting a text style from Cupertino theme to work on this widget. It'll look for the Cupertino theme for this context, which ends up being the default one created by that Cupertino app widget. There we go. I can also give my own theme to Cupertino apps. Let me show you how that works. Cupertino app has not just text themes, but background colors and swatches and various other stuff. I'm just going to amp up the text theme I'm working with here. There we go. So I'm going to set the font weight to bold here. Then I'll jack up the font size to 70, and hot reload gets me what I'm looking for. You know what? Let's actually change the color here just to show how that works. Cupertino Colors provides constants for a bunch of common shades for iOS. So I'm going to use Action Blue, or Active Blue rather. And when I reload, I get blue. So that's Cupertino app. Now let's dig into another widget you just saw, Cupertino Page Scaffold. If you've used the material package, you know there's a single widget called Scaffold. Here in Cupertino, though, there are actually two. And that's because the two packages use slightly different navigation paradigms. Material just has a single stack. If you want to go into a detail screen or something, that new screen goes right on top, covering up the previous one. iOS, though, uses separate stacks for tabbed screens. So you can go several screens deep, but still switch back and forth to another tab. So it has two scaffolds, Cupertino Page Scaffold for simple pages, and Cupertino Tab Scaffold to support tabs. Let's get back in the editor and see how they can be used together. All right, first let's replace the single page scaffold with a Cupertino Tab Scaffold. There we go. So that takes two important parameters, a tab bar and a tab builder. For the tab bar, I can give it a Cupertino tab bar, and that takes a list of items. And these are actually going to be the same bottom navigation bar item widgets that Material uses. They're out of the Widgets package rather than Material, so it's easy to use them with Cupertino as well. So that gets an icon, so I'll just use a book. Let me come up with, I'll use articles here as a nice fake name. And the only thing better than one nav item is two, so I'll make a second one. Let's make this one views, so we can use an I, and then I'll change this text to say views. There we go. All right, now it's time for the tab builder. This is the builder function the scaffold will use to build the contents for the actual screens. So it gets a context and an index, depending on which tab is, and which navigation item is selected at the time. And I'm just going to return a text here. There we go, just to make sure this is working. And let's see, I'm going to drop the index in here to the text so we can see which tab page we're on. There we go. This is just a dummy text field though, so let's put something more interesting in here. Cupertino Tab View is the widget that is actually designed to be used here. And it works with the tab scaffold to make multi-stack navigation work. Inside that, I can put a Cupertino page scaffold, which will give my tab view some things that it needs. One of those is the navigation bar across the top. I can use Cupertino navigation bar here, and in the middle of it, I'll put a title that's based on which tab is active. So either articles or views based on that index. And the last thing the scaffold needs is its content. And I'm just going to use a text here to identify the page we're on. There we go. Just use the index there. And oh, let me clean up some of these commas and get this formatted nicely. There we go. And let's use that text style from before so everybody can actually see the text when I hot reload in a second. There we go. And there's my hot reload. All right. So now I've got tab 0 and tab 1, articles and views working. The navigation bar and tab bar are both in place, respecting the safe area and looking pretty sharp. Now that the scaffolds are in place, let's add some navigation. Because Cupertino is built with Flutter's Navigator and Route classes, you can use the same APIs for navigation as you would with any other app. All right, back in my scaffold, let's wrap the text in the middle of the screen with a button. And we'll give this a nice font size here. Every button needs an on-press callback, so I'll drop one in. It's just a void function. If I'm going to navigate to a details screen, I first need to make that screen. So let me scroll down and I'll make some widgets for it. We'll call this detail screen. And let's see, so this will be a page. So let's put a page scaffold in it. And we can add the navigation bar just like this. And for middle here, we got to give it a title. So we can call it details. Of course, that needs to be a text widget rather than just a straight string. All right. And for the child, for the contents of the detail screen, I can use a text widget, but I'd like the details to identify which tab we're on, so we can see how the navigation works here. So let me come up here and I'm going to add a field to store which subject this is the detail screen for. So just a simple string, get it in the constructor there. Now I can come back down and put that field to work in the text widget. I'm going to give this a text style as well. Make sure it's nice and big. There we go. Format this up. Get that saved. All right, now I can come back up to that buttons on press function. I can get the navigator for the context, which is the one created by Cupertino Tab View. That's how I get the separate navigation stacks for each tab view. And I just need to use this builder given to Cupertino page route to build my detail screen. And based on which tab is the active tab, that index value, I'm going to pass a different string to the detail screen to use as its topic. Cool. All right, let's hot restart. Here we go. And when I click this button, I get a detail screen. I can actually go up and hit this button to dismiss it. If I launch it again, I can also swipe to dismiss. Those Cupertino behaviors that you would expect are there. And you can also see I have separate stacks. So I have details here on one tab, but I have the original screen on the other, and I can go back and forth. Cool. So we've got a detail screen, and we can use it to play with some widgets. The Cupertino package is full of buttons, switches, and sliders, probably the kind of thing you came to this video to see. So let's get back in the app and get a couple of them in the mix. All right, back on the details screen, and first things first, let's convert this to a stateful widget so that I can track some stateful data here. IntelliJ can do that for me, which is great. There we go. And I'm just going to get rid of this text here, and I'm going to start replacing it with a column and a row, just so I can have a label and a switch next to each other. We can see those. So I'll put an expanded around the text, and label it appropriately. And I'll drop in a Cupertino switch right here. Cupertino switch needs a value to tell it whether to start on or off. And so I'm going to need a field for that. So I'll come up here and I'll add a Boolean and just call it switch value. We'll start it off as false. Then I can come back down here and use it as the value in this constructor. There we go. Now I can add the onChanged function, which is called when someone taps on the switch. I'll use it to call setState to update that switch value field, which will also rebuild the stateful widget, including this Cupertino switch. That's part of the pattern for switches on both Material and Cupertino. They animate the movement, but you're still in control of whether a tap is actually flipping the switch, because your containing widget is responsible for doing those rebuilds. All right, let me hot reload and launch the details screen now. And it's blank. That's probably because my column is the height of the entire screen, which means my switch is under the navigation bar. So let me fix that. I should mention, by the way, that a lot of widgets like List View will automatically adjust for the height of the navigation bar, but you can still put content underneath it by using rows and columns directly. There we go. Let me get a little padding in here as well, just to bring those in from the edges. There we go. And let's click this. Yep, there's my working switch. So that's a basic Cupertino switch. And let's try one more control. How about a Cupertino action sheet? Let me go ahead and just clear out all of this. There we go. Cupertino action sheet can be used as a modal. So I'm going to add a button to launch one. There we go, just launch action sheet. And again, avoid callback for the onPressed. And in here, I'll use show Cupertino modal popup. That's a top-level function provided by the package to launch a modal widget. It takes a context and a builder. I can reuse the current context there. And for the builder, that gets its own context. There we go. And inside here, I'm going to create and return a Cupertino action sheet. That's going to need a title. So I'll just call it some choices. Keep it simple. It also takes a list of Cupertino action sheet actions, which are the choices displayed to the user, as you'll see in a second. Let me put one in here. Here we go. So that gets its own child. So I'll give it a text widget. This is the text that gets displayed for the choice. And it has an onPress callback that'll get invoked if the user picks that choice by tapping on it. Inside the onPressed, I'll use the Navigator to pop the action sheet off the navigation stack and then return the chosen value, in this case, just 1. Of course, one choice isn't enough, so I'm going to cut and paste and make this one 2 and that one 3. There we go. And I can even make the first choice default if I want to, using isDefaultAction. All right, and actually, let me go back up to my call to show the modal and type it. So this is the return value that's going to be returned by the modal. So Cupertino action sheet will actually return a value if you use Navigator pop with a return, in this case 1, 2, 3. Since those are ints, I can type the call to show the modal, so I get a typed value in response. All right, let me hot reload and hit the button here, and there's my action sheet. I can pick a choice and it dismisses itself, and there it is. So that's Cupertino action sheet, and I think that'll do it for this section of the video. All right, hopefully this video has given you a good tour of the Cupertino package. There's lots more in there though, and I put a couple links in the description below that can help you keep learning. One is for the Cupertino widget catalog, and the other points to a sample app that shows off a polished Cupertino interface. So check those out and come see us at flutter.io.
Oh, you're here. If you like that video, you could like this one or subscribe Flutter YouTube channel.
Okay, it's truly end. So that is about the material design package and the Cupertino package. Okay, the confusion part over here is that material design will give the look and feel of the Android OS look and feel, and Cupertino package is for iOS look and feel and behavior. Okay, but we always say that Flutter is written for cross-platform. It can run on both Android and iOS and Mac OS, all that. Why do we have 2 packages for 2 different platforms? Okay, actually, it doesn't matter if you. It's only the design view whether you want to use the native view or not. The material design can run on iOS as well, but the behavior and the look and feel may not be iOS. So it really depends on the design from the designer, and it's a discussion between the developer and the designer. Okay. Okay. So moving forward, I'll be focusing on the material design more, because most of the project that I've worked on, most of them I use material design instead of Cupertino design. So moving forward, I should focus more on material design widget. So in the previous video, we watched about the material design. He showed the material app, and then theme and scaffold, and also navigator. On that, we will start learning of them, okay? And instead of me explaining them what it is, I show you videos from the Flutter team, and also from two of the videos is from one of the guy that I'm following on YouTube. He gives really very clear example of those, what the widgets are. This is why I'm showing you, okay? So we go to the theme widget. So the theme widget in the example in the material design video that we watched, it shows only the primary squash. The primary squash is, you can imagine it like this, okay? Is the color, is the preset color for theming, for application color theme. So for example, just now the default theme for Flutter app is blue. Yeah, blue. But you can change it with any color in the primary squash, and it will all the colors in the app will be updated using that squash. Okay. So here we have another video. This one is very short video. It's just around 3 minutes. Just a short introduction, and it's from Widget of the Week from Flutter team.
Are you tired of your apps not being spooky enough? Actually, you probably are, because the default theme isn't very spooky at all. So if that's you, come along for an extra juicy Hollow Widget of the Week special, where we learn to use the theme widget to make sure your users know what time of year it is. You've probably seen the default theme lurking about in the company of the material app, which sits at the root of your application. That theme offers a few quick helpful methods, like light mode and dark mode. However, while you may think that dark mode is sufficient to give your users a chill they shan't soon forget, in actuality, there is a lot more to do. The first thing you'll notice is that the theme parameter actually requires a theme data instance. If you remember one dire warning from this video, pray that it be the theme data class's most important attributes: its color scheme and text theme. Set the color scheme to orange for an immediately spookier effect. There, that's better. You may also know this parameter by its alter ego, primary swatch. Then there's the matter of that other important parameter, text scheme. Because normal fonts won't do, I like to use the Google Fonts plugin to achieve just the right effect. Oh no, this is looking positively frightful. There are a host of other color parameters that see to various parts of your app, and these often draw default values from your color scheme. However, they are yours to command. The rest of the theme data class is but a composition of many smaller themes stitched together, not unlike my dear friend Frankenstein. All of this covers your entire app, but what if you want to target something a bit smaller? Maybe a theme picker to give your users a preview of the horrors in store for them. Use the theme widget and supply it all new data, or copy your existing theme and bend it to your will. Either way, whenever you write theme out of context, Flutter will scour your widget tree for the first theme data it finds. This could be a theme widget you placed somewhere, or it could live all the way at the top with your root material app. And there you have it. The next time you need a special hollow theme for your Army of the Dead, reach for a custom theme. Wait, did I say Army of the Dead? I meant Army of Widgets. For more info on theme and all the other widgets, head to flutter.dev. If you dare.
It's not the time of the year, but I really like this video. So the idea of the theme is to give the color theming for your app. And as you see in the video, there are a lot of options to change, but the easiest part is just use theme swatch, theme swatch. Okay. Next is the widget that we keep seeing all this while, the scaffold. The scaffold in material design will give us, the scaffold will give us actually a scaffold. So it will have the app bar, it has the bottom bar, up bar, bottom bar, floating button. This is floating button, this is up bar, and bottom bar is not in this example. And the body of the scaffold is where your main information is. Okay, so let's watch a video about that. This video is around 7 minutes. And this is from the guide that I'm following.
The Scaffold widget is giving each of your pages a basic screen layout. You can define the app bar widget, body widgets, bottom navigation bar widgets, floating action buttons, and many more. If you are new here, subscribe to my channel and make sure to watch this video till the end. Let's get started with a simple material app that displays a text widget on your app screen. The home property within your material app specifies what is displayed initially on the screen here on the right side when we open the app for the very first time. Displaying only a text widget is boring, therefore we want to remove it here, and then we want to create a scaffold widget to create then a basic layout structure of our screen. Within the official Flutter documentation, you can always look up the widgets that you want to use, in this case, the scaffold widget, and then simply go here to the properties. Here you see then an overview of all the properties that you can use within your scaffold widget, and we will simply go here one by one through them. The first property is the app bar property, which displays then on top of your screen an app bar. Back in your IDE, you can go with the cursor inside of your scaffold, and then you can press the combination Control Space. And here you see then also all the properties that you can use within your scaffold widget. Let's start with the app bar property, where we can then place an app bar widget from the Flutter SDK inside. And within this app bar widget, we can then define again some properties. So press again Control Space to see here a list of all the properties that you can use to define then the layout structure of your app bar. And here inside you have a property which is called title. And within this title property, you can then place another widget inside. So in this case, a text widget. And you always can hover over this property to see then also what you need to put here within this property inside. So you can place there any widget inside. After this, click here on Hot Reload or Hot Restart. And now you see we have here an app bar with the title that we have defined. Always make sure that you have here a comma at the end of all your properties. And then you also can add here another property. Type again Control Space. And here we have the property center title. And if you hover over this property, you see it takes then a Boolean, which is then true or false. And we set it then to true. Click on Hot Restart to see the changes then within your UI. And now you see that the title is centered, exactly what this property is doing. Another property is here this background color property. And here inside, you need to supply then a color object. And therefore you can type here colors, and then you choose here your color, for example, red. And after you click on Hot Restart, you will see that the app bar is in the red color. And of course, if you like, you can also choose here other colors. So simply type colors and then choose here any color that you like, for example, green. And after you hot restart, you have here a green app bar. Next, we can go back to the scaffold documentation. And here you see also that we have this body property where we can supply a widget. Go back to your IDE, and next to the app property, you can then define here the body property where you can then place any widget inside. So here I have created now a text widget, which is displayed then at the top left corner under our app bar. And within the text widget, you also have a property which is called style, where you can then make your text a bit bigger. And now with this text style, we have here a bigger font size. And lastly, you also can click here on this text widget, and then you go here to this cursor and wrap it with a center widget. And after you hot restart, you will see that the text is here centered. So basically the center widget is then centering the child widget that you place here inside. Next to the app bar widget and also next to the body widget, you can also supply here another property, which is called floating action button. And this displays then a widget on the bottom right corner of your screen on top of this body widget. And here inside, you can then create a floating action button, or you can also place here any other widget inside. And within this floating action button, you can type Control Space to see here all the properties. And the properties that we take is the onPressed handler and also the child property that you see here. Therefore, let's add here both of these inside. Within the child property, you can add then any widget. So in this case, a text widget. After you hot restart your application, you see here at the bottom right corner this floating action button where you also can click on. And the last property that we want to add here to our scaffold widget is then this property bottom navigation bar. And inside of it, you need to supply then a widget, and you can simply take here the bottom navigation bar widget from the Flutter SDK. And inside of the property items, you can then supply here a list of bottom navigation bar items. Therefore, let's define here a list, and inside of this list, you can then define your bottom navigation bar items. Therefore, I create here a bottom navigation bar item, and inside of it, you have again some properties which you can use. So in this case, we use then the label and the icon property. Let's start with the label property. Here inside, you can then put a string this time inside, so it's not a widget. And secondly, you can also supply here an icon. And here you can then put any widget inside. However, by default, if it is an icon, then you also take here this icon widget. And lastly, within this list, you can also add here then another bottom navigation bar item with another label and also with here a different icon. And now after you hot restart, you will see here under your scaffold, this bottom navigation bar. And like before, you can also go again to this bottom navigation bar and type here Control Space. And then you see here a lot of other properties that you can use. For example, you can set the background color of this bar, and you also can set here then other colors. For example, the unselected item color, which is then the color of this item here on the right side, which is unselected. And we also have here a selected item color for this item on the left side. Therefore, let's supply here all of these colors, the background color, the selected item color, and unselected item color. And you can put here then any colors inside that you like. And lastly, after you hot restart your application, you will see then here this green background color for our bottom navigation bar that we have defined here. And also the item color is here now in white. And here I also have chosen then the unselected item color, which is then here this grayish color for the unselected item. And by the way, if you want to get here this whole source code, then you can get it with the first link in the description. And also make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like this video.
Really follow him. His videos are detailed and easy to understand. Okay. So the last functional widget that we are going to learn
the scaffold widget
is a navigator widget. So in your app, you don't just show one screen. Okay. In the example, in the material design, in the video in the material design, and also in the Cupertino package, you have seen the navigator widget before. So in these videos, he will explain very clearly about the navigator widget as well. So you can use it as a navigator guide for your app to navigate from one screen to another screen. Or you can use it as navigator widget to hold the navigator within itself, to hold the navigation within itself. Okay. So for example, in your app, you have a login screen. You start with a login screen, and if login success, you go to home. That is where the navigator is used. And the same thing will be used for any other screen or other screen navigation. Okay, so we will have a video here from the same guy, of course.
In this guide, we'll cover the basics of navigation in Flutter that are required by most real-world apps. This guide will be using the Navigator only and no named route navigation. If you're here for a specific section, here are all the timestamps on the screen right now. It can also be found in the description below. This guide is a direct response to answering and seeing similar questions on Stack Overflow. The series will be called Overflown Stacks and will be dedicated to short and direct guides for specific tasks. One quick thing, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and activate your notifications. If you'd like to follow along, head over to github.com/fullstacks, star and clone the Flutter tutorials repo. Open number 5, basic navigation, and drag the start folder into your IDE. Before we jump into it, let's take a quick look at our project structure and how it's set up. We have our main file that imports and starts with page 1. And then we have a page 1 and a page 2 .dart file. Both of these pages has large and centered bold text so that we can see when we navigate. We'll start by adding the basic navigation to page 1. We'll add a floating action button on page 1, and inside the onPressed function, we will call navigator.push. This function takes in our build context and a material page route. You supply your builder function with a widget that you'd like to place on top of the stack. We'll add in the page 2 widget and import its file. If you save and run this code, you should see a floating action button appear on your screen. And pressing this button should take you to page 2. Next up, we'll handle navigating back programmatically. We'll add a floating action button onto page 2, and within the onPressed, we'll call navigator.pop. The pop takes in a context, and that's it for now. When you run your code again, and you press on the floating action button on page 1, you should see another floating action button on page 2. If you press that, you'll navigate back to page 1. Next up, let's look at how we can get a result from the page that we navigated to so that we can perform an action in the original calling page. Luckily for us, all the functions in the navigator returns a future, so we can await the result in our original caller. In the onPress function on page 1, we'll store the result from our future in a variable called navigation result. We'll change our callback to be async, and then we'll await that navigation.push call so that we can get the result from it. We can then check the navigation result and see if it's true. If it is true, we want to show a dialog with some text in it. The last thing for us to do is to return the actual value that we...
I have to pause right here because recently there's update in the Flutter that calling async in the widget, when calling async on the build context is not recommended. So the way that he used async on the on tab and then await for result is not recommended. Instead, over here, he should use just the future then. Okay.
We want our future to resolve. So head over to page 2.dart and pass in true into the navigator.pop function. If you navigate back using the floating action button now, you should see a result pop up saying navigation result success. But you'll also notice that if we press the back button, that result does not show up. This takes us to the next scenario that a real-world app has to deal with, preventing the back button from popping the current view. Flutter provides us with a widget called Will Pop Scope, which you can surround your scaffold with. This widget will call the onWillPop function whenever the back button is pressed. If you want the system to handle the back button press, you return true. If you want to handle it yourself, you return false. If you launch the app now and press the back button, you'll see that nothing is happening. Let's add in an app bar so that we can add our own back pressed functionality on the back button. We'll give our app bar a title of page 2, and we'll set our leading widget to a icons button, and we'll give it the back button arrow. Within the onPressed function of our icon button, we can now call the same navigator.pop function and pass in the value true. Now when pressing the back button, you'll see that nothing happened. But when we press the back arrow in our app bar, you'll see that we still get our alert dialog. If we wanted to add this functionality into the actual back button press, we can just change our onWillPop function. Instead of just returning false, we'll change our function to be an async future. And before we return false, we'll call that same navigator.pop call so that we can still pass the value back on back pressed. Now you'll see that going back with a back button will pop up the navigation result success dialog as well. Let's do a quick refactor to move our navigator.pop call into a shared function so that it's easier to change it when we want to update our results. We'll create a new function called pop navigator with result, and we'll pass in a Boolean called success. We can then move the navigator.pop function call into our pop navigator with result function and replace true with success. We additionally have to pass in our build context, so let's add that quickly. Then we can go ahead and replace all our navigator.pop calls with pop navigator with result and pass in the value true. We'll remove the app bar for now since the back button handles the same function call as well. In most cases, you'd want to return more than just true or false. So let's update our code so that we can pass in different values to our pop and we can handle multiple scenarios within our calling function. To keep the example simple, we'll show a different dialog when navigating back using the back button and navigating back using the floating action button. We'll start by changing our success value in pop navigator with result to dynamic and called result. Then we'll go to where we return from the back pressed and we'll pass in from back, and we'll go to the floating action button on pressed and we'll pass in from button. Now back in page 1 where we call our navigation, we can check for from back and for from button, and we can show an appropriate alert dialog. If you run the code now, navigating back from page 2, you should see a different alert dialog depending on which method you used. This example just shows that you can pass in different values. So if you have something where your result depends on success or failure, you can return that to your calling function so that you can handle that appropriately. If you found this guide useful, please like and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions on what you want me to cover, please leave a comment and I'll respond. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
I think this guy is a different guy, but anyway, subscribe to him when you get the link, okay?
Yes.
In this guide, we'll cover.
Okay, so that is the first part of the session for today. Let's have a 5-minute break and then we'll continue. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
The rest is quite light because most of the widget you already watched during the videos. So I'll just simply go through all of them, and if we have time, we do a simple quiz. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
5 minutes break.
Okay.
Hello, Thảo. Welcome back. Okay, so we have gone through functional widget, we have gone through pub spec, we have gone through Flutter comments, command lines, all that. So now is the easy part. Okay, this easy part, hopefully it will take very short, like less than 7 minutes. The rest of the time is for a very short quiz to test how focused you have been. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so there are a few widgets that are used to lay out the widget on the screen. You have seen them in those examples before. So we have row widget will lie on the children in the horizontal array. And you also have seen column. Instead of lying them horizontally, the column will align is children in the vertical way. Okay. There's issue with row and column is that the space of the screen is limited. With row, the width of the screen is limited, and with column, the height of the screen is limited. Okay, so if the list of widget, the children are too long that overflow the screen, you will have pixel overflow issues. In the debug version, you will see it as the yellow dashed line, but in the release version, you will not see the widget that is ready overflow. Okay, so because of that, there are other widgets to solve those problems. We have stack. Instead of laying them side by side, horizontally or vertically, the stack will overlap the children one on top another.
Means that they have a lot of children.
Yes, three of them also have a lot of children, but the row show them side by side horizontally. The column show them side by side but vertically. Okay, the stack overlap the children one on top another. Let's see, this is your phone screen. You lay it flat, and the first widget will be on the surface. Okay, the second widget will be overlapped. So when you look at the screen, your widget, this is your first widget, the gray color box, the first widget, and it can be covered, partially covered or fully covered by the second widget that is on top of it. Okay. So with stack, you can use it together with a line or position widget to place the position inside the stack. Or you can just simply overlap them one on top another and totally cover them and just waste the resources just for fun. Okay. The next widget is a container. This one is very basic widget and it has only single child. It has only one child. It does not have multiple children, and it only provides the rectangular visual element and contain the child. Inside that child, you can have multiple widget, different type of widget if you want, but container can hold only one child. Okay, and container itself have some attribute, some properties that can change the background color, the borders, the radius of the corner, all that. You can learn all this by going to the flutter.dev and check out the container. Next, single child scroll view. This is the solution for pixel overflow I talked about with the row and column widget. So if you wrap the row and column widget inside the single child scroll view, then it can scroll. Okay, the scroll direction is defined in the scroll direction of this single child scroll view will define which direction of the scroll you want. For example, if you use with column, you can define the scroll direction to be horizontal. So your column, the child of your column can grow long, way past the width of the screen, but you can scroll it and you can view all of them. Similarly for the row, I think I mistake. The column is vertical and the row is horizontal. So for the row, if you use the scroll direction to horizontal, then you can scroll to the end of the row. And with the column is in vertical, so the scroll direction is also in verticals. And in that way, you can just scroll up and down to view all the child in row or columns. Merge the single child scroll view together with row or column. It will have the same behavior as a list view. Because the list view is grouped, it provides the scrollable list of a lot of widgets. Single child scroll view, it takes only one single child. Okay, and the list view take multiple child. It has list of children in it. And the list view just now is used in the material design example you watch. So that list view, you can use the builder to build each of the widget, or you can just simply pass the array of widget into the children property. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, next is input and output widget. So in input and output widget, we have text field, text input, and also icon and images. So first widget is a text. You see this example a lot in almost every video we watch. This text is simple. It will just show a text. Okay. You can also show rich text using this constructor text.rich. With the rich text, you have to provide the text span. The text span, each of the text span will have its own text with its own style. And you can join the span by providing more children to the text span. Okay. The next is the text field. Because on the application, we will need a field for user to enter word. The most simple example is the password, username and password field. You will need a text field to input the text in. With the text field, it will provide the element for user to enter the text in. It also provides some other properties such as obscure text, because in the password field, you don't want the user to enter plain text. So the obscure text will provide a mask on top of the text that user enter. It's good for the password field or any high security input. Next is the decoration. You can have the decoration. This decoration, you can turn it into anything you want, from the material look and feel or the Cupertino look and feel. It really depends on the design. Okay. Next is the icon. You saw this icon before. Yeah. So the icon, you will have the icon data, you will have the color, which is optional. Size also optional. The default color for icon is the color of that icon itself. But if you apply different color, the icon color will be changed. The size also optional, and the semantic label. Okay, semantic label is for accessibility use. Do you know what is accessibility?
No. Can you explain it?
Okay. So accessibility is the features in Android and iOS. Both of them has support accessibility for people with vision impaired. Okay, that they cannot see the screen clearly. So they will use the feature on Android. The name is Talkback. Talkback is one of the accessibility, but it's most widely used. And in iOS, it's voiceover. When you turn it on, the user will have their own a navigation way, meaning that instead of tapping on the button, they will have to use the swipe to select each of the component on the screen. And the system will read out the description of that component. So if that component is a text, it's easy. It will just read out the content of the text. But if that button is the icon, it can't read out the icon. That is why semantic label is used. It is to provide the meaning of the component to the accessibility feature. Okay. This is for icon. Next, we have image. This image, this example, we also watch in one of the video. The kitten video, remember? This one, instead of using this constructor, we can also use image.network, like what he used. Apart from image or image of network, we can have other constructor to use with different provider as well. Check the details of this on the Flutter of Dev. Okay. Okay. The second last group of widgets is actionable. Actionable widgets are those widgets that can receive an action and do something with the action. So for example, just now we have the buttons. Okay, as I mentioned, flat button and raise button are already depreciated. So right now we have text button, outline button, elevated button, and also icon button. Text button, the child, you can just display a text, but actually the child will take a widget. So instead of a text, you can give in anything. Same for outline and elevated button. The child can be anything, but the difference is that the text button is plain. It shows only the child without any decoration. The outline button, the decoration is only the outline. And the elevated button, the decoration is the background color with shadow that create the feel that the button is elevated up from the background. And the icon button, it will take the icon. That's it. Apart from buttons, we also have the value change. For example, the radio and the checkbox. Just now we have seen the example. Is that radio or checkbox? I don't remember. But with this radio checkbox, even though they are actionable, but their main idea is the value change. Okay, the radios, it need to come in a group because radios will select only one item in a group of items. So radio widget come with radio group widget, and you need to group the value. The value need to be stored in a group, and only single value is chosen in a group. The checkbox, in the other hand, the value can be selected multiple value, so they don't need to come in a group. We have other widget as well. We have animation widget, widget builder, alignment widget, and also the canvas draw. So animation widget, I have a few examples here, such as animated alignment, animated align. This widget will provide a simple animation for align the widget, where depend on the widget state. So you can give the state, depend on the state, you choose whether the alignment will be over here is the start bottom and center, start bottom, center. So that the animation will be handled by the widget itself. Okay. Next is the animated container. This animated container, you can provide any type of animation and provide the duration, and the change between one state to another state will be handled by the animated container. It's very generic. It's not as specific as the animated align widget. Okay, for more type of widget, go to YouTube, search for Flutter widget of the week, and watch them. Okay, all the videos that I included in this session today, in the slide. So you can check the slide and you can watch them again. You can watch other video provided by those producer providers. Yeah, just watch all of them when you are free. Okay, are you ready to play game?
Yes.
Okay, so over here I prepare a simple quiz. Okay, so we have 3 quiz over here, plus with this quiz there before quiz. So the first one, you tell me all the widget that you can find in this screen.
It have a up bar and color. This color is maybe the theme widget.
Yes.
That's all. The text, the title.
Yeah, the text. Okay. How this is aligned here?
It's padding.
Padding, yes.
Padding. What was it? I don't remember what it.
It's a row.
It's a row.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, each of these color box is a container with the color.
Container.
Okay. Next, the second quiz.
Column. The column. And padding like before.
Yes.
The text, the title, and up bar.
Yes. Good. Okay, let's take a look at the last quiz.
It have up bars and the title. And next, the title has a central align.
Okay.
Next is text, and then what's it called? Text field.
Yes.
The text field and a button.
Okay.
This button is elevated button.
Yes, correct.
And forgot password is a text button.
Yep. On this?
This is icon.
Yep, correct. You got it all. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of the class, and you really doing very well. So during your time after this, I think is it quite late for you there? I think it's very late for you.
No, it's 8 p.m.
Okay, not too bad. So whenever you have time, watch the video on YouTube. The best way to learn for developers is actually to self-learning actually. So when you watch them and you have any question at all, you can come back to me and ask me. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. That's it.